All right, everyone, welcome back into another preseason props video. Going to be touching on the top prop bets on this Friday slate for PICK6, Underdog, and PrizePicks. Let's go ahead and get into it. But first, let's go ahead and get into another recap. So yesterday, a little bit tilting again. We had two players get injured, Antoine Green and also Hendon Hooker. And unfortunately, with preseason, you don't get reboots for that. That's kind of the unfortunate side of preseason NFL DFS. Green had 3 targets. It certainly seemed like he was on his way to a good game. And then Hooker as well. He played really well in the limited time that he played. And then kind of got a little bit unlucky with Javon Baker. He was missed on a route where he's pretty open, where he would have gotten the over. Had a play called back that was like a 7 or 8 yard gain as well. Overall, I'm happy with the process from yesterday. Just got a little bit unlucky, honestly, with 2 players getting injured. That could be a variable today as well. Just looking at some of the weather that we have, especially in the later games. So we have 3 games tonight, guys. This later game, Philly versus Baltimore, has the chance to have some rain in it. And just kind of with that, coaches are not going to run out players that might be slightly injured, but also if someone does get injured, they're just likely not to return to the field. I mean, that's true for preseason in general, but it's a slight increase of risk there as well. So that's not really something we can plan for, but it is a variable that does exist. Looking at the prop bets that we are getting today, we have seen Michael Penn. We've seen a lot of these prop bets just fluctuate already today, which I'm a little bit surprised by. So I kind of want to do a game-by-game breakdown of this. Let's jump into kind of the early game. So I want to call your attention to the Atlanta versus Miami game. This is a decently high-scoring game, especially for this slate. 38 is going to be the point total, which is down a little bit from what it was yesterday. But we look at the Miami depth chart, and what we're going to see is that they have 3 quarterbacks that they have on their roster. They got Tua, probably not going to play that much, and then you have Mike White and Skylar Thompson. Now, Miami has been known to kind of commit to one quarterback, or at least have their quarterbacks throw about 15 times when they get on the field or more. The expectation is going to be, though, that each quarterback is going to play a half. So we're going to get a half of football from Mike White, and we're also going to get a half of football from Skylar Thompson. That's the expectation. And so when I'm seeing that we're getting a decent prop line difference between those two, it doesn't exactly make sense to me. Now, I get that White is going to be playing with better receivers, but at the same time, it doesn't really matter. The question that I have is, can these quarterbacks get their overs here in 2 quarters of play? Mike White at 108, it does seem pretty high. And so, like, if I had to choose between these two, I'd probably go less for Mike White, more for Skylar Thompson, just kind of betting on the playing time for those players. And then we look at it on Underdog, guys. We are getting a slight prop line difference there. So we are already seeing Skylar Thompson there. We probably just don't want to touch that prop bet there. And then I do just want to call to be on the lookout again on PICK6 to see if we are going to get some big prop line differences. I'll show you guys the prop line differences that we are currently getting. So Malik Washington, that's off by 6. Lou Nichols off by 4. LaMichael Pirine off by 4. We have a bunch that are off by 4 right now as it sits. So already a day in which it seems like we are getting decent value on PICK6. And this is something where I do think as the day progresses, we're going to get more and more value. I mentioned on the live stream that on PrizePicks, we were getting a massive value with Mike Boone for his over rush yards. That ended up crushing, and he actually ended up middling, which was awesome. But the nice thing about that is about 10 minutes into the live stream yesterday, Mike Boone's PrizePicks line got bumped. You were still able to get that bet on Pick6. And so that's how I would go about using Pick6 as well, guys. Again, it was pretty nice that it ended up middling because you could bet the under then on PrizePicks once they bumped it. It was at 35.5. He ended up getting 35 yards. So that was kind of nice. So we move on into the running backs for Miami. And I'm a little bit bummed out because the one player that I would have wanted to bet on, like kind of getting his over rush yards, assuming that it would be around the same as Jalen Wright and Ahmed, it was actually Chris Brooks. I kind of mentioned this on yesterday's stream. To me, he's kind of like the best, I don't know exactly how to phrase this, like running back, if you will. Like obviously Mostert, Achane, and even Jalen Wright, they're more of kind of perfect fits for this style of offense. Whereas I kind of say, like, if you put Chris Brooks into the old Seattle scheme, like the Chris Carson role, he would pretty much excel. So I'm a little bit bummed out that we're not getting prop bets for him today. And he is talented. So I am a little bit surprised by the lines that we're getting Jalen Wright at 30.5. He probably will get a decent amount of run in this game. Don't get me wrong. Ahmed might get a decent amount of run as well. I'm kind of expecting like 6 carries each between Jalen Wright, Ahmed, and then Chris Brooks. Okay, that's around 18 carries. And then maybe some of, and I doubt it, but maybe Achane plays a little bit, gets 4 carries. I doubt Mostert's going to play. I doubt Jeff Wilson's going to play. So that is that variable. I think the most we can expect is maybe 10 carries for one of these running backs. But that's going to be very much game flow dependent. And then kind of just looking at the pass catchers for Miami right now, to me, it does feel like more of a guessing game in terms of like who's going to be productive. Again, kind of the player that I'd want to bet on the most is not on this props betting slate, if you will, and that'd be Braylon Sanders. Because he is someone that did stand out a little bit last preseason. Hasn't been getting too much hype thus far this preseason. But when we look at kind of their injury report, we know they're going to be without Waddle. OBJ's out. Barrios is out. Ezekama is going to be out as well in this game. Most likely we have to see. Tyreek Hill, you're not expecting him to play that much. So that does leave them pretty thin at receiver. So much so that they end up signing Mike Harley Jr. And so, again, they're pretty thin. So chances are, yes, Malik Washington's going to have a good game. River Craycraft could have a good game as well. And I do think there is a little bit of a stacking opportunity, but at the same time, to me, it feels like we're forcing a little bit. And again, this is one of those situations where if we want to bet on this game specifically, let's just go ahead and do it on PICK6. We got, or receiving wise, let's go ahead and do it on PICK6 where we have Malik Washington. We can just do over 19.5 for his receiving yards. That is the route to go with here. And so I did spend a little bit of a decent amount of this video on Miami. Miami is a team where, based off of last year's preseason trends and years past, we kind of know what to expect, and we've gotten a decent amount of news. For the rest of the slate, it's not going to be as news intensive. We haven't gotten too much news. We got enough, and I'll go through that, but I just want to kind of let you guys know that's kind of why I spent a little bit more time on Miami. All right, so now looking at Atlanta, we did get confirmation that Michael Penix is going to be playing a lot at quarterback today. We don't exactly know what the playing time allocation is going to be. They did bring in Nathan Rourke. I thought that was interesting. They brought him in on Monday. So is he battling for QB4 spot? Is he just kind of practicing so they don't overextend Kirk Cousins, obviously coming in off of injury? Not really sure, but Michael Penix is expected to play a decent amount. How much so, we don't exactly know. I'm expecting at least a half of football from him, and we'll see what happens from there. Now, Michael Penix is someone that I've already seen his prop lines fluctuate a decent amount. I think it started at like 111. Now it's down to 108.5. Kind of interesting. Like, I would say when we're comparing the two quarterbacks here that are at 108.5, Mike White is pretty likely to only play a half of football. And unless Mike McDaniels wants to get a slight different look at maybe Mike White plays 3/4 in this game and then Skylar Thompson plays 3/4 in the second game. I mean, that could happen, but I doubt it. I think there's more of a chance that Michael Penix plays more than a half of football, maybe a drive or two into the second half. So if this line comes down a little bit more, I'm definitely going to jump on it. 108.5 does seem to be the correct line. I don't know if I exactly want to bet his under on PICK6 where it's at 111.5. That does feel like we're probably forcing it a little bit. Rushing wise, we are getting Avery Williams and Jalen McLeland rush yards. And again, these lines are kind of fluctuating throughout the day. That's going to happen. But I personally don't really see too much there from them. I will call out, though, that they are pretty thin at running back, assuming that Bijan Robinson isn't going to play that much. Tyler Algier, you wouldn't expect to play too much. Carlos Washington's, again, kind of the one I would probably want to bet on the most, just because he's someone last preseason was getting a decent amount of hype. The thing is, these players are all going to get around 7 carries, maybe 6 carries. They don't really have to get that many yards per carry, like 3.5 yards per carry, and they could get there. It's a little bit game flow dependent. Let's actually see who's the favorite to win this game. Is it massive? No. Okay, Miami's 2.5 dogs, so that would suggest Atlanta has a chance to be rushing the football more at the end of the game. So maybe we could chase that. Receiver-wise, it is a guessing game, guys. Receiver-wise, I wouldn't really mess with Atlanta. Typically speaking, I know it's a different coaching staff, but typically speaking, they have been more difficult to predict. I think that might come down to just their beat reporters not being as information intensive, and that's also probably why we're just not getting that many Atlanta Falcons receivers props. So let's go ahead and jump on into the next game. So we have Houston versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. We look at this game. This game is going to be, again, a decently high-scoring game, relatively speaking, a close game. 37.5 is going to be the over and under for this game. Now, it does appear that the Houston Texans starters are going to play in this game. And if they do play, you're obviously expecting like a series or two. That's actually what they did last year in the preseason in their game 1. CJ Stroud played a little bit, actually looked terrible. And then we didn't really see much of him until week 1. And so the question is, what sort of playing time are we looking at for the Houston Texans quarterbacks? I think it's kind of going to be an even split again. My biggest question, though, is what's going to happen with those players where maybe at the Hall of Fame game, they had a plan to get them more looks and they weren't able to. So like the player I'm most interested in today is Jawar Jordan, who only played a little bit. D'Amico Ryans did have a lot of praise for him this week in camp as well. Kind of mentioned that He wasn't as good in the game as they would have wanted, but at the same time didn't play as much as any of us would have wanted. And so I'm going to pass upon the quarterback props that we're getting. And I want to call it the prop bets that we're getting for those running backs for Houston. So Cam Akers is at a low number. I think logically speaking, it kind of makes sense to test Cam Akers, see what you have in him this year. If you do not think he's going to be a contributor for you guys throughout the regular season. Now, Joe Mixon is still banged up. They kind of know what they have in Daria Gumbawale and JJ Taylor. I would say Cam Akers looked okay. You'd want him to look a little bit better. 15.5 yards is not that much, right? That takes him probably getting 5 carries in this game to break that. And so just be on the lookout for these prop lines to change. I will say Jawar Jordan at 18.5 rush and receive yards. That is definitely interesting to me. That's probably my favorite bet. I'm kind of double dipping with Jordan. Hopefully there's a random part of this game where it ends up getting canceled, where we miss out on a majority of our exposure from Jordan. I'm still tilted by that. But I think that's just the correct move. It just makes logical sense for me to see him get more work in this game. And again, kind of looking at the PICK6 cheat sheet here, Cam Akers is someone where maybe we have the potential to run a middle. So his original line started at 19.5 today. It's now down to 15.5. Again, I think I would rather bet the over rush yards for him at 15.5. But also, I think I'd rather just go with Jordan on Underdog. Receiver-wise, does feel like a guessing game. Again, I'd probably just want to refer to the PrizePicks or the PICK6 cheat sheet here, seeing if we're getting any good enough discrepancies. And I don't really think so for Houston. I mean, John Mechie, his receiving yards are off by 4. He's someone that could get a little bit more playing time as well in this game. Davis Mills is adjusting as well. And so maybe a stack and opportunity there if you guys want to run mid or run over on both sites and run under on another site. You could do that. I mean, that's definitely up to you, but I'm just going to stay away from that. So let's go ahead then and jump into the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Pittsburgh Steelers did give us news that Russell Wilson is going to sit in this game. So with that, we got Justin Fields, who is confirmed to only be playing a few series in this game. And so what do we do with that, right? Like, what's it going to mean for the rest of these quarterbacks? Kyle Allen, how many snaps is he going to get? Is he going to kind of finish out the first half for Justin Fields? And then we're going to see Plumlee, who a fun player, a fun prospect. He's a guy that's going to rush the football a lot. I kind of wish we were getting a rushing prop for him. Like, give me 9 yards. He's going to get over 9 rushing yards in this game, assuming he plays at least a half of football or at least a quarter of football. But dang, guys, the rookie quarterbacks need to learn how to slide. Milton looked good, but needs to slide. Hooker looked good, needs to slide. And Plumlee, he's probably not going to slide, even though he's a former baseball player, or college baseball player as well. So he knows how to slide, but need that from him. So with that, I don't want to touch the Justin Fields pass props. Like, if he's only playing a series or two, I don't want to mess with that. Now, the Steelers are kind of notorious for really just dominating in the preseason with their starters. Like, each year, like, without doubt, it's a weird thing. Their starting receivers, whoever it is, like, you go back to like Juju, James Washington, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Calvin Austin, like throughout the years, each player has made one big play in the preseason in their opening series. It's super weird. And so obviously if that happens, Fields will probably get his over pass yards. I just don't want to mess with that. And then Kyle Allen, if we knew for sure he was playing a half of football, we would just be hammering this over pass yards. But we don't know that. So it is kind of a guessing game there. But again, kind of comparing Underdog and PrizePicks, his line at 75.5 does seem to be a little bit too low on PrizePicks. We look at Underdog, it is at 79.5. And that's enough for me on Underdog to probably want to bet the under. And honestly, I'm PrizePicks to probably want to bet the over there. So continuing on to the passing game here. I don't really want to mess with them. Darnell Washington, tight end, does make sense to get a decent amount of playing time here, but that's just a pure guessing game, so I don't want to mess with that. La'Mical Pirine is someone's yards that I do want to talk about. So the Steelers are typically a team that will try to rush the football a decent amount, and kind of looking at it, Najee, Warren, you're not expecting them to get work. Cordero Patterson is out in this game as well. Pirine is someone that does make sense to give 6 or so carries to. Now they have Edwards there. That's a rookie that they could kind of run into the ground, and I wouldn't be surprised by that. Jonathan Ward is someone that can certainly take a hit as well. He's someone I could see having a good preseason. But again, this is another spot where we maybe have a middle for La'Mical Pirine here, where we see on PICK6 they have his rush yards at 21.5. We could easily just bet the under there on PICK6. And then what we could do is run out the exact opposite on Underdog. And it's nice because we get the rush and receiving yards in there. So if he catches a 2-yard pass or whatever, that's going to help us there. And so I think that's a decent path to go with, and I'm going to make a note of that. This is kind of my favorite middle today, if you will, assuming this line doesn't change too much. And so with that, let's go ahead and move on into the last game on this slate. Now, we are a little bit concerned about the weather here. This game is projected to be a pretty low-scoring game, so we look at the sportsbook lines that we're getting here, 34.5. So you gotta say decently low-scoring game. And with the weather, and again, this is hours before lineup lock, but with the weather, you probably already with these teams, you would expect it to be a run-heavy scheme. That's just what they're notorious for. But with the weather, you kind of expect that a little bit more. So let's just look at the running back rooms here to start. So they're not showing for the Eagles on DraftKings right now. They're not showing Torian Davis-Price, who is going to get a decent amount of work in this game. They also have Will Shipley, Lou Nichols, who has been getting hype out of Philly camp, which I'm a little bit surprised by because for Green Bay did not look good, did not really pop at all. So interesting there. And then I think to me it's between Will Shipley and Price. And so if it's going to be this run-heavy scheme that I kind of think it's going to be, I would kind of argue that these lines are a little bit too low. Oh, man, I had this one teed up. So Lou Nichols, for what it's worth, it'll be interesting to see what his line gets updated to. They had him at 16.5 on Underdog for his rush receive yards. Then on PICK6, it was at 24.5. So that was a massive middling opportunity. Honestly, just be on the lookout for that. That is one where we could see a decent edge on throughout the day. But looking at it, guys, again, if we are betting on these prop bets, the site to do it on is going to be Underdog because they're kind of asleep at the wheel. They're honestly giving us just... I think they're almost the right lines, if that makes sense. Whereas PrizePicks, they know they're going to bet the over more so they're kind of juicing the lines a little bit. But Price on Underdog, we want to be betting that over 21.5. Again, chances are he's going to get around 6 carries. Maybe has a chance to catch a pass out of the backfield. That's a decent edge. I don't think there should be a difference between him and Will Shipley. Now let's go ahead and take a peek at kind of Baltimore as well, guys. Again, Baltimore is typically a team that will have a running back kind of run into the ground, if you will, throughout the preseason. Now, I don't exactly see Alley being that type of player. He's more of a Keenan Mitchell type. Alley was someone that for Marshall, college football-wise, he always popped. He was like, if you guys play college football DFS, was always one of the highest priced players on the slate because he's kind of a do-it-all type back. And so if he does get a decent amount of work, if this game is a run-heavy game, he is someone that I do think will have a good game. We see his rush yards on PICK6. It's going to be at 25.5. His line on Underdog, rush and receive yards is 26.5 and then 27.5. So a little bit of differences between the markets. Again, I think PrizePicks is doing this intentionally. I think if I wanted to, I would want to get that receiving yards in there because he can catch the ball in the backfield. I think I would want to run that over there. So let's go ahead and jump into the receivers then as well. So receiver-wise, I'm starting out with Baltimore. It's tough to guess what's going to happen here. Now, they have been vocal, kind of hyping up Malik Cunningham, and I don't know if it's just hype because he's a former quarterback that's moving to receiver, so he just has more eyes on him. It's more clickbait type of news, if that makes sense. But I do want to call out the lines that we are getting for him. And so on PICK6, we're going to see his line is at 19.5. On PrizePicks, his line is down to 15.5, and this is strange. So PrizePicks originally had his line at 21.5, which I would argue is probably correct based off of the projected playing time that he's going to get. So it's definitely strange that it dropped that much. Like 6 receiving yards is a lot for them to change, especially when you look at PICK6 where their line came out at 19.5. It's just a little bit strange that it dropped that much. So I'm inclined to bet the over here just due to the hype that he's been getting out of camp. Now, obviously the worry would be that the rain is a little bit too heavy. If you guys watched a little bit of the Carolina game, you saw several drops just due to the ball being wet. So there is that concern. But man, Malik Cunningham at 15.5 receiving yards, that is an extremely low line for a guy that should play a lot. So I do like the idea of betting this over. Like if you guys were trying to stretch a 4-slip bet into a 5-slip bet just for the preseason, and obviously you guys can just use the Underdog cheat sheet instead to find another bet. But if you guys were just concentrate on the preseason, that'd be one where I'd want to run out. And then lastly, we'll touch on the quarterbacks as well, but for Philly, for the receivers, I'm not seeing the edge there. John Ross, again, a player that's gained a lot of hype. I think, again, he's just more of a clickbait-worthy type player where it's a fun story to see and talk about him in camp. Tough to really say what we should expect from him, so I'm kind of skipping over that. And then just looking at the quarterback room, apparently there's a QB2 battle going on right now between Kenny Pickett and Tanner Mackey. I don't know what to expect from that. I really don't. And so playing time wise, I want to get more confirmation on this. We do not have it just yet. And so when we look at the lines that we're getting, I'm a little bit surprised that we are even getting Kenny Pickett lines and not Tanner Mackey lines as well. It's kind of strange. And so this is one where as we get more information, I would just be on the lookout for it because we could potentially get a pretty good edge here. Maybe Pickett plays more than we're expecting or than they're expecting right now. It's definitely something to check into before lineup lock. And guys, good time to point out, I will be doing another live stream as well before these games kick off. So be on the lookout for that. It'll be an hour before lineup lock, so 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then lastly, we jump into the Baltimore Ravens quarterback room. Typically speaking, the Baltimore Ravens do present a nice edge for us, like in preseason NFL DFS quarterback-wise. We haven't got that indication that that's going to happen. Josh Johnson is going to play and start in this game. Lamar Jackson is not going to play. Again, probably playing a series or two. And then we're getting two quarterbacks that haven't gotten that much hype out of camp. And so that's a little bit concerning. These are two players that will probably rush the football a little bit more. The thing that I like about the Baltimore Ravens is they're very much a team that builds their depth chart based off of their starters, if that makes sense, based off of their type. So a lot of these quarterbacks have similar characteristics as to Lamar Jackson. And so they're going to rush the football a little bit more. So when we're looking at their passing yards, I don't want to be messing with those too much. So with that, guys, let's go ahead and get into the bets of the day for today. All right, so starting out with the Pick6 bet of the day. And the nice thing about Pick6 is that you guys can change your bets up until lineup lock. So if we get slate changing news, very awesome site to be able to take advantage of that. That being said, if you play some of that as a DNP, that prop bet is automatically a loss. So you need to be on the lookout for that. And so that can be a little bit risky with preseason if you guys are not paying attention. Obviously, on PrizePicks or Underdog, that doesn't matter. So looking at, guys, these are the two best prop bets that we currently have on Pick6. I think those are pretty good edges. All right, and so looking at the Underdog by the day, again, we're mostly just taking advantage of some discrepancies that are out there. And I do want to point out with Cam Akers as well, you do have the opportunity to bet the under on Pick6. That's a decent middling opportunity there. Jawar Jordan is more of a kind of personal feeling as well. He's something that I expect to get a little bit more run in this game. I just think that the production that Underdog is assuming that these two players are going to get, or the playing time that these two players are going to get, Underdog is not expecting them to get as much playing time as kind of what a little bit of the reports have been suggesting. And just kind of logically speaking and historically speaking, based off the Texans, it is a little bit risky, I will say. Again, if you just want to roll with like the top three prop bets, we got LaMichael Pirine for his over rush receiving yards. And so the nice thing about this is that, one, it's already lower than the last bet I just called out for you guys. But you also get the receiving yards added in there. Then we got Ahmed on PrizePicks is at 23 for his rush yards. So again, getting a decent edge there. And then Torian Davis-Price, same exact thing, where we're getting an edge by not only attacking a line that's lower just in the rush yards, but we also get the opportunity for them to catch a pass out the backfield. So decent edges there for Underdog. I just want to remind you guys, if you are looking to use those prop bets and you never signed up for Underdog, help the channel out. Use the promo code 9to5. That's just an easy way to support the channel. And you guys will get a deposit match of up to $250. I believe that is still active. I need to change the graphic there. At the very least, it'd be a $100 match as well. And so then looking at the PrizePicks bet of the day, obviously I'm searching for more prop bets. My mind's in the head of, all right, where can we bet more? And I want to make that clear because all those Underdog bets that I just called out, you can literally bet the opposite on PrizePicks. And again, PrizePicks is a little bit higher, but they're all just rush yards for a lot of those. So I did want to call that out. And part of the reason as to why I like this bet here is because, again, looking at Malik Cunningham, his line started at 21.5. No real reason for his line to drop, especially with everyone else's lines not dropping. Based off the information we have received, his projected role in this game has not changed. So definitely weird there. Again, if you didn't want to use that, I would understand. Skylar Thompson as well, 90.5 pass yards. He is someone that should be playing a half of football today. That's a very nice line that we are getting. And again, if you don't like that, you can bet the opposite on Underdog. And so I know that's not like the best analysis, but it really is a decent way to go about betting on preseason. You know, last night's live stream, I mentioned that I had already gotten us decent edges on PrizePicks on Underdog to the point where we saw the PrizePicks lines really overvaluing a lot of players then. And so my suggestion was I'm kind of hedging in a way where I'm betting a lot of the unders, or I had already bet a lot of the unders then. We saw it with Plummer. Hendon Hooker saw his lines rise a lot. And so that can be the strategy as well, is get your value early and then adjust throughout the day. And so I do want to remind you guys that I will be coming out with a live stream later on today about 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you guys play NFL DFS, want access to the NFL DFS preseason lineup optimizer, that's available for $10 a month, as well as all the prop tools that you saw in this video, throughout this video. Head on over to 9to5sports.com to get access for that. Thanks for watching, guys. Good luck today. And as always, let's keep cashing.